A lot of folks happy to see each other again after the holidays, I think, out there. A lot of happy New Year's and good mornings and all of that. Well, good morning again, everyone. And Happy New Year again. So for anyone who may not know me, whether you're here in person or watching from afar, I'm Pastor Ian Boley on behalf of Pastor Bob Miller and on behalf of Dennis. Thanks for Dennis's welcome this morning. On behalf of the praise team, all the staff here, I'll add my welcome to all of you. And thank you for being with us here today on this first Sunday of the year. What we're calling Epiphany Sunday. Technically, Epiphany's tomorrow, but we can get away, I think, with calling today Epiphany Sunday. So it's been a busy couple of weeks for all of us. Over the holidays, my wife and daughters and I, we spent lots of time with our extended families and friends. I'm sure you all did. Celebrating Christmas and New Year's several times over. Eating, drinking, exchanging gifts, watching movies, watching sports, football, and occasionally sleeping. We have one more celebration today, actually, in my family. My brother and sister are going to come to the sanctuary service later, and then they're going to join us back at the parsonage today for a Boley family Christmas brunch. So it's our final official gathering of the holiday season today. Now, just a bit of background on my family. Some of you might know some of this already, but my daughters, Amy and Eliza, they are the younger cousins on my side of the family. So their older cousins, our nephews Will and James, will be at the sanctuary service later. But Amy and Eliza are the oldest cousins on Jessica's side of the family. So this Christmas, they spent a lot of time fawning over their baby cousin, Sophie, or as she's affectionately known, baby Sophie, or Soph, or Soph. So Sophie is the first baby of Jessica's sister, Emily, our first niece, right? And she is the youngest cousin on that side of the family, at least for now. We've got at least one more on the way on that side. So all of this is to say that watching Sophie, baby Sophie, and watching our daughters watch Sophie was a popular pastime for everybody this Christmas. Sophie was born back in March, so this was her first Christmas. And she is just starting to discover the world around her in her own special baby-like way. And it makes us very nostalgic for when our own girls, they're now 4 and 7, for when our girls were both her age, when they were discovering the world in the same way that she's been doing. So one example, Sophie, we've all seen this before. Sophie recently discovered how much fun clapping her hands can be, right? She'd be sitting in the middle of the living room, opening one of her many, many Christmas presents with help from her mom, right, or with help from one of our girls. She'd be taking cues from all of us around her, celebrating each new present by putting her hands together and smiling at all of us in that way that babies do. So she claps and claps, and then she looks around at all of us as if to say, "Did you guys know you can do this with your hands? You gotta try it. It's so much fun." She has that joy of discovery right now, as only babies can have. So, an epiphany. An epiphany is a moment or an event in which something is revealed to us. And seemingly for the first time, we discover something for the first time. It can be a moment of divine truth, a moment of special insight. It can be a personal realization, an emotional breakthrough, or it can even be like a scientific discovery, right? It can be like that moment in the mystery novel where the detective finally figures something out, where it all comes together because of this one missing detail, that one vital piece of information, and then we all become like Dr. Watson as everything is explained to us for the first time. So an epiphany always involves some kind of revelation, some kind of revealing, some kind of ultimate truth. So here's our passage for today. This will be familiar to all of you. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in the territory of Judea, during the rule of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. They asked, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We've seen his star in the east and we've come to honor him." When King Herod heard this, he was troubled, and everyone in Jerusalem was troubled with him. He gathered all the chief priests and the legal experts and asked them where the Christ was to be born. They said, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what the prophet wrote. You, Bethlehem, land of Judah, by no means are you least among the rulers, because from you will come one who governs, who will shepherd my people Israel." Herod secretly called for the Magi and found out from them the time when the star had first appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child, and when you found him, report to me so that I too may go and honor him." When they heard the king, they went. And look, the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with Mary, his mother. Falling to their knees, they honored him. Then they opened their treasure chests and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Because they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their own country by another route. So we heard that a few weeks ago, during the season of Advent. We've just heard it again today. This is the Epiphany passage from the Gospel of Matthew. It was chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Matthew is the only gospel to include this part of the Christmas story. And notice how simple it is. I don't know if you've ever noticed this before. The number 3 is never mentioned. There is no number 3 in this passage. The names that we've come to associate with these wise men, Gaspar or Caspar, Balthazar, and Melchior, they are never mentioned. Right? Names came later. They are described, these wise men are described not as kings, but as magi from the east. And so a magi is essentially a Persian priest or wise man. And at times, the term has even meant like a sorcerer or a magician. And so that actually is where we get the word magic from. The Greek and Latin words for magic originally came from this old Persian term, magi. So we read this and we assume there are 3 magi because Matthew mentions 3 gifts, right? We picture them as kings because that's how they came to be depicted in later medieval artwork. And in Greek and Eastern Orthodox traditions, there are actually 12 magi from the east, not just 3, there are 12. And so Matthew's addition to the Christmas story here, it has evolved over the years. Our image of it, our understanding of it has evolved over the years. It's captivated our imaginations. And these characters, these 3 wise men, Gaspar, Balthazar, Melchior, their 3 gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, they've all taken on further symbolic meanings for us. Gold, of course, for Jesus, the divine king. Frankincense for Jesus, the priest. And finally, myrrh, or embalming oil, for Jesus, the human. And the 3 kings, of course, have subsequently become a metaphor for the entire Gentile world. One from Europe, one from Africa, one from Asia, the 3 continents of that time. And most of this is common knowledge, but it's kind of helpful to just review how it evolves. So they are bearing witness to this Christ child for the first time. But notice also in this passage how the wise men respond to King Herod. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago as well. The first time we heard this passage, we talked about it as we contrasted Herod's role in the story with the role of Joseph. Now, the Epiphany, the revelation, the divine presence, the holy truth is troubling to King Herod, according to Matthew. Troubles King Herod. It's inherently threatening to King Herod because the authority of God in the world is once again revealed to be greater than the authority of mortal kings. Now, the United Methodist lectionary, for anyone who's not familiar with that idea, the lectionary, it's basically a calendar that we sometimes use to map out the story of Jesus over the different worship weeks of the year. That lectionary calendar, it pairs today's Epiphany reading with one from Psalm 72. And there's a reason for that. It pairs these two readings together precisely because of this contrast between Herod's kingly authority and the divine authority of Jesus. And so here in Psalm 72, the psalmist is offering a prayer for the king of Israel and Judah to rule with the same righteousness as God. So we're in Psalm 72. We're going to hear the first 7 verses. It reads, God, give your judgments to the king. Give your righteousness to the king's son. Let him judge your people with righteousness and your poor ones with justice. Let the mountains bring peace to the people. Let the hills bring righteousness. Let the king bring justice to people who are poor. Let him save the children of those who are needy, but let him crush oppressors. Let the king live as long as the sun, as long as the moon, generation to generation. Let him fall like rain upon fresh-cut grass, like showers that water the earth. Let the righteous flourish throughout their lives, and let peace prosper until the moon is no more. So some really nice sort of typical psalm imagery in there, right? That's a Psalm of Solomon, very lovely psalm. But as we have said, the epiphany of Christ is troubling to King Herod. And by all accounts, Herod was not the kind of ruler we hear the psalmist here pleading for. Not that kind of ruler. The psalm is asking for God's righteousness, for justice, for peace, for compassion for the poor and the needy. But King Herod simply isn't remembered for any of those things. King Herod is remembered for his cruelty. He's remembered for his excess. He's remembered for his collaboration with the Roman occupiers in first century Palestine. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that we think this is true is that the most flattering historical account of King Herod comes from the Roman historian Josephus. Maybe you've heard of him. His name was Flavius Josephus. Josephus was a Roman historian. And so that should tell you everything that you need to know about what kind of king Herod was to his own people. So the point is the contrast. The point in the Matthew story is the contrast. When God's presence in the world is made known, when God's children are invited once again to bear witness to this divine truth, it changes everything that we think we know. It starts a new year for us. It starts a new age. It starts a new era. Hopefully, it calls us to the kind of ministry the psalm asks for and the kind of ministry that Jesus himself practiced and embodied. It's the kind of witness that makes Herod take notice. It's the kind of witness that makes the whole world, all of us, take notice. It's a new vision. It's a vision of peace, justice, kindness, compassion, righteousness, and truth for the whole globe. And I think the way this works, in fact, I really believe that the way this works, is that when we really see the presence of God in the world, when we really see God's creation anew, when we have one of these epiphanies, we see it the way it's meant to be seen. We see the world through God's eyes. And we cannot help but to see God and Christ in everything and in everyone around us. We start to see our neighbors as neighbors. We start to see things again for the first time. So when baby Sophie is sitting on that living room floor, discovering the world for the first time, opening her first Christmas presents, clapping her hands and smiling, feeling that first tooth come in, it's like a bunch of small epiphanies. You see, it's not just about all of us bearing witness to the Christ child. It's also about all of us becoming like that Christ child. Seeing the world through new eyes. Seeing God and creation again for the first time. Seeing how God's presence in the world is revealed, all the ways in which it is revealed. Seeing how that works. How Christ holds everything together. How it pours into every corner of the world. How it's being renewed in every moment of our lives, our individual lives and our collective life as the body of Christ. Epiphany, it is God being willing to rediscover the world through the eyes of a child, and God inviting us to do the same thing at the same time. So just the other day, it's like a day or two after Christmas, we saw a video of baby Sophie, Soph, taking her first steps. She just started walking over the holidays. So before they know it, she'll be running around the house, and a whole new category of baby-proofing will have to take effect. We're praying for Sophie's parents, Evan and Emily, as she learns to walk and run around the house. We're maybe a little nervous for the next time that we will have to babysit. We're hoping we can remember how to do it all. But today and every day, thank God for the gift of Epiphany. Try to see creation. Try to see your life. Try to see your neighbor. Try to see every one of God's children through baby's eyes once again. Thanks be to God, and amen.